welcome to another episode of Your Business Story with me, your host, Kristin Spencer, the copywriter who cares the most. Today, I have a special treat for you. We are going to be talking with Frank Agin, and he is a networking master. I don't want to embarrass him, but he is a networking master. And just so you know, viewers, listeners, you can go watch the video later. But Frank has experienced a power outage at his office, and so he is visiting us from a bedroom instead. But I promise you, his office is amazing. I've talked with him while he was in it many times, and it's not going to affect the quality of our interview at all because his personality is the sparkle that you need today. Thank you, Frank, for coming on. How are you?
I'm doing well. Actually, I'm in my son's bedroom. He's lives in Miami, Florida now. He's a software developer. So everything's decked out, right? I mean, there's a TV. It's all he's made sure there's good Wi-Fi. He's never happy with the Wi-Fi at home. But yeah, something happened. The power went out at the office about 45 minutes ago, and it's like I told my assistant, I gotta go. I gotta figure this out. So anyhow, we're
Well,
here.
thank you. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate your flexibility and your inventiveness. And I'm
Yes. Yeah.
sure my listeners are going to see readers because I'm a book writer. My
Yeah.
listeners are going to hear a lot more about you and how inventive you are on a regular basis. I will say I'm not going to do the normal questions and writing Frank his one liner because Frank likes to write his own copy and he's actually a talented writer as well. But I wanted to have him on as a networking expert because networking has taken my own business to the next level. And some of that is definitely thanks to Frank. So, Frank, could you tell us a little bit, give us some backstory? How did you get into the networking environment?
Well, to be honest, I got into it because I was horrible at it. But I guess I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of it.
Oh, yeah.
I live in Columbus, Ohio. I moved here in 1984 to go to law school. I have a law degree. I have an MBA from the Ohio State University. Um, and from there, I got a job in public accounting as a tax consultant. I helped big companies, big organizations, not for profits have tax issues as well, help them with their tax problems. It was a great job. It was great pay. It was great coworkers, great everything. Except I didn't want to do taxes for the rest of my life. It gets old.
Yeah.
And So I left and I went into private practice. And a funny thing happened when I went into private practice. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients, right? I didn't know how to network.
Right.
We think of these caricatures of bad networkers. That was me racing around, handing my card out. Who's your attorney? And just, I don't know what I'm doing. And this is in the day. This is 1995. This is before LinkedIn, before email, before any of that. Where do you go to get information? You have no idea. I could go watch a YouTube video now and learn how to install a toilet, right, or whatever.
Right.
So I struggled. I was deathly afraid of failing because I just couldn't figure. I just didn't really know what to do. Um, and it's a little bit complicated for an attorney because we're really not supposed to be calling people. We're not supposed
Uh,
to, you can't
right.
cold call.
Right.
Uh,
No, yeah.
um, so I had lunch one day with a friend of mine who took a different path out of law school, and what she did was she started her own firm. And
Okay.
I asked her, I said, what do I need to do to become successful? And she said, you need to get into a tips club or a leads group. And I really didn't
Oh.
know what she was talking about, but through a series of introductions, I found myself in a room or in a restaurant at TGI Fridays at 7:30 on a Thursday morning with 5 or 6 other people who were kind of similarly situated, different businesses, but similarly situated. And the concept was explained to me. And it, really, I can sum it up in a quick sentence: is that you can lift your whole world up by just helping other people.
Hmm.
And I can talk about you, I can talk about this person, I can just spend all day just lifting up other people, and I'm excited about that. But you self promote for a minute and you're exhausted. And that's, so I really
That's true.
dialed into this. I'm good at helping other people.
Mm.
I know how to get things for the banker and the telecommunications person and the accountant, and I'm just going to trust they're going to do that for me. So I did. I got very involved, became that chapter's first president, got on a national advisory board, became the first franchisee, and then in the early 2000s bought it. I had an opportunity to buy it out,
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
at right place, right time, right personality, right everything, and that changed the trajectory of my life. I went from being this very left brain attorney type to being a right brain relationship type, um, and really became a student of networking and why it works and why it doesn't work. And have written a number of books. Hence that's why I've become the writer. I just write a lot. And you and I have shared, I think I don't know if I write 1,500 words a day, but I write a lot. Something comes to me, it's like I'll just
Yeah, just get it
you,
out.
you just get it out. And so I'm unique. Not everybody's like that. But I have a podcast, talking about networking and always looking for different ways. Well, you are on my podcast. It's coming out
I
soon.
was. It was
Yeah.
really fun.
Um, and so that's how I got into this life of helping people become more successful via their relationships.
Right. And I would say, so I'm going to pick your brain a little bit if that's okay.
Yep.
I have recently had some friends come to me and they're like, Kristin, social media is not working for the engagement the way it used to. And it doesn't, I I want to validate their feelings, but it doesn't surprise me
Hmm.
because of how finicky it is. And also, the goals are shifting all the time on those platforms. And we're on a bunch of them right now. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. YouTube's my favorite, and Twitch. Which, have you ever been on Twitch before?
I haven't. I've watched sporting events on it, but I haven't been on it.
Okay, well, welcome to Twitch. You are officially streaming on it live right
Okay.
now.
Okay. Great.
But these kinds of, as far as like going on and leaving a post and getting a bunch of engagement and having someone seek you out to hire you, it's not working the way that it used to. And I've noticed that friends uh my friends are asking, why is that? And I'm like, well, it depends how you're using it, but it's not relationship based.
Yeah.
It's not. And
Well,
so,
yeah. Go ahead. You finish.
oh no, I mean, I want to hear what you have to say, but I'm
Yeah.
encouraging all of my people that I'm close with, who I'm writing for, that they need to be more active on platforms like LinkedIn in a relational, purposeful way. And they need to get into networking groups if
Yeah.
they want to see real, lasting growth in their business.
Yeah. I think the best metaphor, what's going on is simply this. Imagine there's a magic trick, right? Pulling a rabbit out of a hat. That's really neat. You're in awe. Where did that rabbit come from? But the second that everybody knows the magic trick, everybody can pull a rabbit out of the hat. It's not special anymore. And that's what's
Mm,
really happening with social media is, hey, you do this, you hashtag, you do this, and that's easy to duplicate, but and so it doesn't become effective. Maybe something new is effective. Relationships are as old as time. And people are like, well, LinkedIn's going to change this or that. It's like, you know what? Babies still come from the same damn place. Um, you know, we, we, my point is that relationships and how we interact as humans
it
isn't going to
hasn't
change.
changed.
And
Right.
people want to do business with those they know, like, and trust. And I don't know how effective using social media was before. There might be people who, there's probably somebody out there who hit on success, and then this urban legend kind of grew, and everybody's like, okay, I've got to get on there. I've got to learn to pull a rabbit out of a hat because that's the secret, and now everybody knows how to pull a rabbit out of a hat. So, uh,
Right.
you know, I run a networking organization. I am certainly pro networking groups, networking organizations, but I always tell people you don't need to be in a networking group to network.
Right. That's
So
true.
I'm not pitching me. I'm not saying I'm not
Join my group. Right.
right. I'm not the end all and be all of your success, but you do need to network. You do need to build relationships mean, you're not in one of my groups, but you and I have connected. I know about you. You're on my radar. I'm happy to refer you out, introduce you here, have you on my podcast. Great. We're networking. And
Right. I am going to go to one of the in-person groups that you're connected to, though, with Michelle,
oh,
because
cool.
I want to go to an in-person group now that we can. I'm excited.
Oh, I think it's awesome that you have a chance to meet Michelle. She's have
She's
you had her on your
famous.
podcast yet?
I have not. She's
Oh,
on vacation right now, I think, still.
she got back yesterday.
Okay, all right.
But they announced she was the number one person in their company, the
I
whole
believe
company.
it.
Yeah, she's
She's just the
amazing.
most delightful. Like,
Yeah,
she's famous. I told her that. I was like, I don't know if you realize how famous you are with
yeah,
all these people. You're the one they talk about all the time. And of course, she's also humble, right? So
yes,
she won't even really acknowledge it. But yes, I'm excited to meet her in person. And the truth is, I wouldn't know her. I wouldn't know you if I hadn't joined in on a networking group.
yeah,
That's how I got to know so many of the wonderful people that I get to connect
yeah,
with on LinkedIn, or we go on each other's podcasts. And with the social media outreach, that was not happening. I can be 100% transparent about that. And I
yeah,
actually had my social media manager come on my show last week to talk about how she's transitioning her entire business to create social media that attracts networking friends,
yeah, yeah,
because I was like, what are you going to do? This is just plummeting. And she's like, I know. And I was like, well, let's think. Where do we meet the people we like that actually hire us, that we have
yeah,
ongoing relationships with? And she's like, it's a networking group. So I'm like, why don't you just focus on that? You'll be a specialist and you'll help people connect with
yeah.
others so they can make money and grow their business.
Well, I mean, she's gonna what she's doing is she is inventing the new rabbit trick, a rabbit trick that's not easily duplicatable because people struggle with relationships.
Right.
Um, I have a dog in here somewhere. Anyhow, they struggle with relationships, and mainly they struggle with relationships because they come into the relationship with, okay, where's mine, right?
What can I get? Yeah.
Right. That's how they come into relationships, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but it generally doesn't. You know?
Right. And her whole model is she teaches people how to be their more authentic selves, to show up and serve and help. And I was like, this is a perfect connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I I would love to have her on my podcast. Connect us, or
Okay,
maybe I
I
know
will.
her.
Yes, she is on vacation right now, but as soon as she
Okay,
gets back, I
that's
will
fine.
connect you.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. I keep referring her to people, but I told her, I was like, I'm your legacy client, right? Like, you're going to stay working for
Yeah.
me, even though I'm introducing you to all these amazing people. But she's out there, she's networking too, and she's finding the same thing I found, which is social media doesn't do the same thing for us that networking does.
Yeah. And it never will. It never will. Even the metaverse, it just won't.
Right,
It
right.
it
Where you
just
can show
won't.
up as a 3D blob of
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Yeah, well, you and I've never met in person, but you and I have we're basically talking face to face.
Yeah.
I can see the genuineness in the things you say. I don't know how tall you are, I don't know if you what color your shoes are or anything, and none of that matters.
Right.
But there's something about this face to face, and there's certainly something about in person as well. But I find anymore that when somebody had this happen last week. Hey, I want to meet you. I see you set up a phone call. And I just emailed him back. I'm like, I'm not having a phone call because I know how those
Right.
things go.
Yeah.
I'm distracted. You're distracted. It's just not as effective.
It's not.
Um, I've got a Zoom account. I pay for it whether we use it or not. So let's use it.
Let's use
Um,
it.
and he was okay with that. But, it's just, I think we just need to kind of grow up into we have this ability. Stop worrying about the eastern side of your city. Worry about the eastern hemisphere, right? I mean, there's a whole world out there that we can take advantage of.
That's
So,
true. Yeah, I love that. I did have a phone interview today and I was like, this is not what I like now. I'm not used
yeah.
to this anymore.
Oh, I know. I'm just distracted. So,
And you can't see their face, right? Like, you can't, for both of us, relationships are really important in that we want meaningful connection. And you can have that in in a different way when you can see the person's face, when you get those nuances in the tone of their voice, right? That is very hard to replicate on the phone, and literally it's impossible in text. So if you
Oh,
get in a fight with someone on text, video
yeah.
call. That's my recommendation to you.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, I was on a call last night and the networking hub, and there was, you got a screen full of people, and there was somebody I could see they had something to say, right? You kind of see
Right.
their face, they kind of lean forward, their mouth opens a little. Hey, Carrie, it looks like you have something to say. Well, I do. Now, when you're on a call, it's usually one to one. And when there's that moment of silence, like if you have a moment of silence, I can see in your face that you're thinking on something. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
lost you. You're thinking on something, and I can sit and be quiet. Whereas if it's a phone call, it's kind of like, Kristin, are you still there? Are you still there?
Right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking,
Yeah, there's
which you're
not
allowed to
room for
do.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Frank is the most practical. Well, first of all, I told one of my friends yesterday, I was like, I'm talking to Frank tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll geek out on fiction at some point. So we're going to save that till the end, I think.
Okay.
But you're such a practical person, and I know when I came on your show, you were like, okay, Kristin, break down these steps for us, because I went on to talk about personal storytelling and networking, which, as you know, personal storytelling is my absolute favorite thing
Yeah.
ever. But what are some tips that you could give us for showing up with a servant's attitude in a networking event or group?
Yeah, what I tell what I hear a lot of times is I don't like going to those things because I feel out of place. I feel uncomfortable. I don't know what to say. I hear that
Mm,
all the time. And and a lot of people don't show up for that reason. They just feel uncomfortable. And so what I tell people is, one, I'm like Mr. Network, and I have those feelings too. I think they're all really natural. It's just a
mm-hmm.
human thing. We developed as humans in tribes or clans of 150 people, and we spent our whole lives just with those people.
Right.
And when you saw a stranger, it wasn't good. So we come by it honestly. But but what I tell people is when you're heading into those events, stop thinking about what you're going to get and think about, okay, how am I going to serve this room? And maybe have
Yeah.
goals for yourself, but I call it putting on the cloak of invincibility, not invisibility, invincibility. And what I mean by that, and I truly do this, figuratively in my head.
Mm,
I'm coming in here, I'm throwing my shoulders back. I'm here to help somebody. I'm here to save somebody, making introductions, whatever it might be. And what I find is that kind of gives me the courage to get through that apprehension because I know that people don't reject the person that nobody ever says, Superman, don't come in here, right? Hey, Superman, come save the day, right? Batman,
right.
come save the day. People want superheroes in their lives. Not that I'm a superhero doing it, but I'm trying to do something heroic. And so
Right.
it's hard to be rejected in those situations. What people aren't. Stop giving me those nasty referrals. I mean, it's just you're not going to hear that. So if you go in with that mindset and maybe just have a goal for yourself, I'm going to talk to a couple people, I'm going to learn about them. I'm going to find one thing I can do to help each one of those people. Even if it's just introducing people, you'll have a great experience. And what you'll find is that people will go out of their way to help you in return. As far as not having anything to say, good. You're better off not having a lot to say because the goal is to get them talking. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're the queen of stories, right?
Yeah, I can
Get
get
other people,
anyone to tell me their story. Yeah, it's my superpower, right? Like,
right?
not just
Yeah,
I'm telling you the story, and I'll give away one of my things
please.
that I do that actually people love this. I do it on every call if there's an opportunity to do it. Sometimes we get excited and we get sidetracked, but I try to make it a point to say I am obsessed with stories, and that means I collect stories.
Mm.
Could you share some of your story with me?
Are you asking me or just asking somebody?
You feel like I'm asking you, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what I say. And people are so much more willing to do that. It helps them come out of that nervous state they're in where they're like, I have to use my USP. I need to tell them I do this, this, and this. I've got to use my 3 words when we're doing the introductions. Like, just tell me a little bit about who you
Yeah.
are. That's the important thing. And so feel free, listeners, viewers, to steal that. I came up with it because I am literally obsessed with storytelling. And I even asked Frank on his show, I was like, tell me a story. And he did. And it was so fun. And I'm sure his listeners enjoyed that so much, or they will enjoy it when it
Yeah, when
comes
it
out.
comes out. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's, I think you do two things there, right? Um, One, you put them at ease
Yes.
because I'm comfortable telling my story. Wherever,
Right.
whatever it was, whatever it was about, I'm comfortable telling that story because it's my story. But two, um, I feel good in that moment. I feel like you care, and that's
Yeah.
what people need. And I hear it all the time. Wow, that's just an amazing person. I just think they're so neat. But I didn't say anything because you got them to talk. So,
Right. And I'm actually preparing my super secret keynote right now. And I'm working with Kristin Work. If you don't know her at all, she's amazing. I'll link to her all over the place. And she asked me, she's like, I know you want to talk about storytelling and neuroscience because that's what I want to talk about. She's like, but what's the single most important thing that you help people do? And I'm like, I teach them how to listen. And she's all, that's your whole keynote. I was like, oh my goodness. I didn't think that's what it would be. But that is so important, especially, and I feel like we've been programmed that in business, listening is not as important as speaking. And
right.
that couldn't be more further from the truth, honestly.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. And, people, what I find, here I am. Part of my problem, I left corporate America. I had a CPA, I had an MBA, I had a law degree, and I figured that would just be my ticket. And in the end, nobody really cared about any of those things. What they cared about was that I cared, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you know enough, and there are other people who know enough to help me, but you care about me. Are you going to go that extra mile? And that's what's important.
And that's what creates, like, I'm sure you talk about this all the time. I know I've heard you talk about it actually. How it's like chasing the sale is not
Yeah,
going to get you the sale and it's going to damage the relationship.
yeah, yeah, yeah. People will get me on the phone and they get into sales mode, and I kind of stop them and I'm like, listen, you're at a fork in the road here. You have a choice. You can sell me on what you've got, and it might be a yes or a no. It might be a yes, right?
Right.
Chances are it's a no because it just that's the odds, right?
Yeah.
It's not a definite no. It might be something I totally need, but it's a yes or a no. Or you can just tell me about you and tell me about what you got and don't make it in this is what I do. Oh, okay, great. Get on my radar. Have a relationship with me.
Yes.
I may ultimately do business with you. Maybe not, but at least you're kind of still in the game, right? You're still having this conversation and we can come back and talk another time. If this is a yes or a no, the pitch is a yes or a no, and you get a no, we're done.
It's
We're done.
over.
Right.
Yes.
Here, not only do you potentially have access to me, but if we're just having a relationship and sharing about one another, you have access to me, but you really have access to everybody I know and everybody that I'll meet. And that is immensely more powerful. Um, and I run into people and it's door number one, door number two, and I have people pick door number one occasionally, right? They don't get it,
Oh.
you
Oh,
know,
that's a bummer.
but this is, I'm programmed to do this. Always be selling, always be selling. Okay, great. The answer is no. Thanks for your time. I got to move on. Um, you
Right.
know,
You're like, I'm not even in your target market. No.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. I've encountered that too where I'm on a call with someone or I'm talking to them and I start hearing the high ticket sales script. and I'll stop them and they get so upset every time. I'm like, listen, I'm in marketing. I know what you're doing. If
Yeah.
you want to talk to me as a person, let's do it. If you're determined to go through this script, the sales psychology is not going to work on me because I know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. You know the rabbit trick, right? You know how to pull a rabbit out of a hat. It's not a trick for you.
Right. It doesn't work on me because I know how to do it. And I
Yeah.
actually don't write those scripts for my clients because I know they're not going to work like them sitting down with someone who needs their help and they're giving them free value. And when they need more help, that person will remember them and they'll remember
Yeah.
that relationship.
Yeah. It reminds me of a story. I had a guy on my podcast. His name's Paul Banks. He's over in the UK and he works with a lot of his company, his boss's company works with a lot of call centers, if you will,
Okay. Yeah.
kind of educating, whatever they do in call centers, it doesn't
Right.
matter. And he's of the same mind that you and I are, that, you know what, you develop relationships and the work will find you, but you develop relationships, see how you can help people, so on and so forth. Well, his boss sat him down and said, okay, tell me your strategy. What are you doing? We're doing a lot of these things and, expense report, whatever. And he said, I just have this philosophy that I just shared. And his boss is like, enough of that. No more.
Oh,
No more
no.
of that. What I need you to do is just the direct route. Here's the script. Go out and just start making calls. And that's what I want you to do. So at any rate, he's a little demoralized, but hey, you know what? The boss is signing your paycheck. So this is what we're going to do.
Right. You need to follow
Um,
their instructions if you
yep.
want that job to keep
Yep.
going.
Yep. A week to 10 days later, somebody comes in and becomes a great client. And he's the person. And the boss calls him in and said, well, how did this all happen? How did you use the screen? Because the boss wants to put him up on a pedestal to show all the other sales rep,
Just
look
do
at
what I
Paul.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, he did it. And Paul said, you know what? That's a relationship I've been working on for a long time, and there are a series of steps, this person to this person that brought me to this person, got me beyond the gatekeeper. I was talking to exactly who I needed to be talking to, had a leg up on the RFP and everything. And then the boss was like, okay, go back to what you were doing. you
I
know
love it. That's
because in the end it's more
amazing.
effective.
It works longer, right? Like you're like let's use some letters, right?
Right.
Your LTV for a customer who chooses to work with you after building a relationship with you will keep coming back.
Yeah.
Someone who hires you after a one-off interview, they're going to take the job you did and they're going to leave and you'll never see them again most of the time.
Yeah. No, it's I think the people who teach these sales sorts of things are people who've never really been successful in sales. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. That's the question I
Or
have for
maybe it's
people.
like a product or something, right? Like
Yeah, I
not
don't know.
services.
Yeah, it's just they were they grew up in a different time, and these legends of, the cold calling and just dialing for dollars. And I certainly in the financial services industry and some of the bigger firms, um, and that's the mindset. And then we're going to bring 100 people in. We know 99 are going to fail, but they're not going to fail so horrifically that they don't bring in something. They'll bring in a few clients, but they'll go
Right.
away and we'll have, you know, 99 times a few clients, which is not nothing. And we'll have one person standing who's, figured it out, who's just persevered.
Right.
Um,
But
and we're,
usually, in my experience, because I have some natural salespeople in the family, those people can instantly build relationships. That's their
yeah,
superpower. That's why they're
yes,
able to get the yes through using part of the sales script, although most of the time they throw the whole thing away.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's a turnoff for people, and I've been through those programs where it's, the first thing is okay, we need you to, bring in the phone numbers of your friends and family. It's like,
Oh, no. Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
That's
Uh,
awful.
and that was the end. I had got an insurance license at one point, and I'm just like, I'm going to leave a lot of voicemails, and I'm just going to get the hell out of here. I'm done. This is this is not, you know, this is not where it's headed for
I
me.
think that's
So,
interesting because I almost got hired as an insurance agent right before I started my own business. And I was
yeah,
like, I don't want to do this. They're like, you have to go out, talk to these people, say these things on the script. And like for me, the big thing was I don't want to be away in the evening when my kids are home from school. So that was like the
yeah,
warning light. But now that I look back, I'm like, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean,
yeah,
maybe I could have sold stuff, but not the way they're doing it.
yeah. Well, I think a there's some of it that needs to be done. I mean, you and I didn't know each other before we connected. Now we're
Right.
not selling each other. Um, but I just, and I guess if you're selling insurance, you call enough people and, you call enough people and some people need insurance. Hey, you just kind of, lightning in a bottle sort of a thing. But, maybe it's just my world because I'm in a networking world. It's networking people that are successful and it's not
But
even
like
close.
my insurance agent, all the like I have so much insurance, Frank. I can't even tell you how much insurance I have, right? I have every kind of policy you can imagine other than a boat. I will never buy a boat. But my insurance agent that I have is through a friend. It's through
Yeah.
networking. I
Yeah.
I needed insurance and my friend's like, "Oh, I know this person. They're really reliable." And that's who we hired because we believed that the friend knew what they were talking about. And why go call a bunch of people when
Right.
you know someone?
And chances are you are paying more than you could pay by going to some 800 service. But
Right.
when you have an issue and issues come up, that's why you have insurance, right? There's
That's
a
right.
fire, car accident, whatever it is. You want to be able to call that person and say, you know what, I need you to go to bat for me. In fact, yeah, I had this conversation the other day. It was one of our members called and said, hey, did you do you do you know an attorney? He was having problems with his insurance company. Had gotten in an accident. It wasn't his fault. Insurance company's like, we're only going to pay for 15 days of car rental. Well, my car's
But
going to be in the shop for 3 months. You
yeah.
know, well, we're sorry. But if you had the insurance agent that calls up and says, listen, um, I sold him a policy and told him that he would be covered. You need to cover him.
Right.
Um, and it might not be that easy, but at least you have somebody going to bat for you. Or,
Yeah, I mean, I know. So my insurance agent's assistant is named Olivia. She's on my speed dial, and we own some different properties. And the property insurance was harassing us about some cement corbels that had not been recently painted.
mm,
They were like, "We can't renew your policy until you paint these corbels." And I called her. I was like, "What is this?" And she's like, "Give me 5 minutes." 5 minutes
yeah,
later, she called me back. She's like, "No problem. It's been taken off of the list.
yeah,
Here's your renewal. I sent it to you in email."
yeah, yeah. Relationships. It's good to have them.
It's so valuable. Okay, Frank, what is the biggest advice you would give someone who feels like they know what they're doing, they're an expert in their industry, but they're not seeing the growth they want? If you could just tell them to do one thing, what bit of advice would you give them?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it's one thing, but I think the starting point is this: find something you're passionate about and find someone in your community or something in your community to volunteer with. And I know that sounds really kind of indirect and counterproductive, but it's not. Because when you go out and you volunteer, and again, it's got to be something that you're passionate about, not,
Right.
hey, I think there'll be some great people here. Um, no, it's something you're passionate about, youth sports, homelessness, whatever. But when you go out and you do those things, you're not doing them in a vacuum. You're not doing them by yourself. You're elbow to elbow with other people who care about the same thing you care
Mm-hmm.
about. And you don't have to, wear your insurance agency shirt or anything like that. People will find out about you, you know what's the story on that Kristin? Oh, I looked her up on LinkedIn and she does this, this, and this, you know. But they're going to get to know you. They're going to get to like you. They're going to get to trust you. Then they'll figure out, okay, what are the things that you do? My husband or my wife runs this business. Is this something you can help with? Or I'm a coach and I've got this book in my head, but I do not have the discipline to get it down on paper. So that sort of volunteering is really powerful. Again, it gets back to the relationships. But
Hmm.
even people who aren't in the organization will see that you're doing those things, and it sends a message to them that, okay, wow, that Kristin, she really cares. She doesn't care about things I care about, but the fact that she's working in the homeless shelter or whatever it is, and at the school, um, I'm going to put her up on a pedestal, even though it may not be something I'm totally passionate about. And they're just more likely to want to get to know you. So that's, for me, is a starting point. The second step is get out and meet people, because you never
Mm,
know where things are going to come from.
right.
You and I are talking. I don't know where it's going. You don't know where it's going, but it's good things, right? Neat things are going to come from this.
That's right.
Um, and maybe not directly from you, but the next connection, or directly from me, it's the next connection, or the next connection that really kind of changes things.
Yeah, I love that. And I do volunteer at a school. So what
Oh, there you
Frank is
go.
saying is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm passionate about is children having the opportunity to learn basic skills, and for me it's reading. I want to make sure they know how to read well.
Good.
But yeah, so that was hilarious. That I was like, you
Yeah, I'm not
changed it to
snooping on
school.
you. I'm not snooping on you.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for coming on the show. Now you all understand why I do not write for Frank, because he loves to write himself. And whatever you do, I would say don't feel that you're in competition with others. You can be friends. Like, we're writer friends. We talk about writing. And I did want to save a few minutes for that because I cannot help myself. So, Frank, what book are you reading right now, or what book are you writing right now? I'd love to hear about it.
Oh, geez. What am I? It's not that I'm not reading. I read lots of books because I talk to lots of people,
Right.
and and I just got sent one yesterday. I got a PDF. It's coming out in January. It's called Idea Climbing. Um,
Ooh.
it's it's talk. It's the what's the author's name? We just spoke. I feel bad now.
No, it's okay because you are
Mark
a
Carter.
podcast host. Okay, what is
Yeah,
it?
no, no, yeah, Mark Carter. But he
Mark
wrote this
Carter.
book. Yeah, he wrote this book, Idea Climbing, and it's really um, a book about how to bring your ideas to life. And what I like about it, he talks about tapping into other people, because we have
Ooh.
ideas and we need to refine those ideas. So he gave me the PDF. I started reading that. He wants me to come up with a review for him. Um, as far as writing, I've written 10 books, and I don't know that I'm going to write well, I want to write one more. I have a fiction book in mind.
I don't
Um,
believe you at all when you're like, I'm not going to write any other books. I don't
well,
think that's true.
I mean, I write a lot, and I guess I could piece things together. And so I'm not saying never say never. It's just I'm just kind of in a phase in my life where I don't have the committed time to kind of really put into it. And
Right.
that'll change. I wrote I've written two novels. I wrote the first novel in 1986, and then I didn't write the second one until 2008. So like 20 years later. Um, well, you know what? I was going to law school. I was starting a career, getting married, having kids. And then there was
Right.
just kind of a window in my life where it's like, you know what? I can do this. And it's not, just getting the momentum to get started. Once you're,
Right.
writing a book is, for me, is like reading a book. Once you get past the first 50 page, you're kind of committed.
Right. You're like,
Um,
what's going to happen next? Right. The sense
right.
of discovery. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's what I'm working on.
Nice. Yeah, I'm also writing a book live on LinkedIn. It's been really interesting. I did not think anyone would care about, if I'm being honest, right? I didn't think
Yeah.
anyone would care about it at all. But people are like, "How did you get this idea to do this? This is
Mm,
amazing." I'm like, "I don't know. I just thought like let people see my process so that they can understand
yeah.
it's not as torturous as they think, right?"
Yeah.
Because people who haven't written a book are just they're like, "How could you possibly do that?" I'm like, "Well, this is how."
Yeah. Well, I'm of the mind that there's 8 billion people on the planet, and you don't need to convince everybody to do business with you to be successful. And
That's
so
true.
I'm not surprised that there are people out there that are interested in what you have to say. My first book was uh, totally about my experience playing college football. I thought, other than the 5 or 6 people that I really kind of characterized in the book, nobody would care. I had somebody buy 41 copies for like their senior class or something like this. They wanted to be their senior book.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, I had no idea this
That's
was going to happen.
amazing.
Yeah, so um, I tell people, get your story out there. Have Kristin write it if you can. If you have a book, you owe it to the world to get it out.
It's
I'm not
true.
saying you need to do it, but get that message out, because that message, no, it might not sell 1 million copies, but it might impact one life. Right?
Yes.
And that's
Oh,
and that's what needs to happen.
that's right.
Um, so
This is my cue to say you should listen to Frank because your story matters. It really
yeah,
does.
it does.
Well, Frank, how can people find you? How can
Yeah,
people join your networking group if they're looking for a group right now?
yeah. The best way to get a hold of me, I have a website out there, frankagin.com. It's kind of the central hub. Shows all my
Okay.
books, shows my podcasts, my emails on there, my LinkedIn, Facebook. People like to communicate in their own way. I'll get a text from some random person. It's like, yeah, my mobile number is on my Facebook, so I guess you can text me. Well, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, just reach out, whatever ails you. I mean, some people just looking for that little bit of nugget of insight. I had a conversation today with somebody, really not a candidate to be in my organization, and I'm okay with that. Here's 10 minutes of my time, and I'm going to give you a few little tips, and keep me in mind. And it's a formula that works.
That's amazing. For our listeners, you will be able to find all of the wonderful ways to contact Frank in the show notes. And Frank, I would love to say at this point, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you. I appreciate your flexibility with the power outage.
Oh
Like,
my God.
you are a superstar. You're
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. You know what? I kind of worked through in my mind if ever this happened. If my power's out, send my assistant home. We're going to do this. It was all kind of set in motion. So
Well, now you know it works because this has been amazing.
thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast, wherever I was. So
Well, thank you so much for listening. We hope you have an amazing day. And like I said, your business story matters. Talk to you later.